Welcome to everyone to our inaugural talk of the speaker series entitled Program on U.S.-Russian Relations. I'm Elise Giuliano. I'm a professor here and director of this speaker series and of the master's program at Harriman Institute. And I want to just say one organizational thing before we get started, which is that if you are not on the mailing list of the program on U.S.-Russian relations, but came to this talk through the general Harriman Institute mailing list, that's fine. But if you would like to be on our special mailing list for this particular speaker series, then you can talk to our per student assistant. Sophia, can you just raise your hand? You can talk to her after the talk and give her your email, and we will add you to the list. Next week, we have a book talk by Alexander Vindeman next Wednesday. And a number of other very interesting talks this semester. The talks are open to the public and everyone is welcome. And I think that's one of the strengths of Harriman Institute. Now today, I'm very pleased to welcome Andrew Ryvkin. So I will just introduce him and then he will give his presentation and then we'll open it up for a Q&A. And then I also just ask before you pose a question to briefly introduce yourself. So Andrew is a journalist and a commentator who writes for The Atlantic and Airmail. He is a specialist in Russian politics, information warfare, and the inner workings of Kremlin power. Before his career in Western media, he spent years inside Russia's propaganda machine, publishing lifestyle magazines that featured Kremlin talking points and creating hit talk shows and blockbuster films that influenced domestic opinion. He helped Russian oligarchs to crack their public image. His current reporting focuses on Russian disinformation, the evolution of propaganda in the digital era, and U.S.-Russia relations. So please join me in welcoming Andrew Ryvkin.
Thanks so much. So first of all, thank you. Good evening, and thanks for having me here at Columbia. It's better. Some of probably the bravest people in Russia have spoken in this room. So it's dissidents, freedom fighters, independent journalists, most of them, if not all of them, now in exile because the Putin regime obviously drove them out. And I'm not one of those people. No, in fact, for a number of years, it was my job to combat dissent. It was my job to paint freedom fighters as crazy, just bonkers. Why would they want this freedom? And it was, most importantly, it was my job to lie. That's because I worked for the Kremlin propaganda machine, for the Kremlin apparatus. So tonight, as part of my redemption arc, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to try and tell you about the Kremlin and its propaganda, but not in a very wide sense. We all know it ever since, I don't know, the 1920s, but in a very modern and narrow understanding of it, which is Kremlin propaganda in the age of attention economy, in the age of social media, videos, reels, advertisements, branding, everything. Because the Kremlin is incredibly adept at this whole thing. So let's start. I'll tell you about him later. I know it's weird. It's just got a guy in a varsity jacket. Believe me, he plays a huge part. So when we think of propaganda, this is essentially what we think of. This is Vladimir Solovyov, Vladimir Solovyov. I'll have to force myself to speak without an accent when I speak English.
Here understands the accent.
So this guy, he's probably the most famous Russian propagandist, TV host. I think his show's like daily. This is like his big Sunday show. If I'm not mistaken, he's threatening to drown the Eastern Seaboard here. Probably. So you know this kind of propagandist. And you know this kind of propagandist. So this is, you probably met these guys. They are online. Russian trolls, bots, You see them in the comments section, YouTube or Twitter, especially now. So everywhere they pose as Americans or people from France, like it doesn't matter. And often in broken English, but now they use AI, so the English is more or less good. They're America first, stop helping Ukraine. We've seen this kind of propaganda. It's not unusual, but what about this kind of propaganda?
Давай с этого места. Я как-то поподробнее. Продвигаемся, господа. Нет, он мало.
Nice, isn't it? Like it differs from that troll or from the very mean TV host. What this is a show reel, just like a very typical Western studio show reel where you show off your projects. So you would see this kind of media, for instance, at various media markets where studios come and they buy and sell TV shows and films for like distribution rights. So this would be like a studio would be presenting a show reel like this. And the studio is called the Internet Development Institute. And it became, they launched it about 10 years ago. I want to say something like that. It truly came into power and it became this vast institution, massively important for Russian propaganda only a few years ago, just around COVID. Now, what the Internet Development Institute is it's a state-sponsored media conglomerate that operates like a film foundation where you could ask for money for your projects, but it doesn't make anything by itself. It just gives you money for your projects. Obviously, you come in, you pitch, they decide, and then you make something. So every single thing that I showed you before, the show reel, these are all real shows, films, video games. What they didn't show was they handle all ads like Russian PSAs. Do they still have PSAs? Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, so they handle all of it almost. They have 20 billion views, 2,000 online projects, and counting. And this is the head of the institute himself. This is Alexei Gorislavsky. What's important to know about what this institute did and with the show reel, that you would ask, what of the shows that we just saw, what is propaganda? Pretty much all of it, but also none of it. It's all very hybrid. It's all mixed. There's not really a single show, maybe just a few shows that are Putin, war in Ukraine, fight, tank, die, whatever, very few shows. Most people don't watch them really, just horrible numbers, horrible ratings. Other shows are, they're about falling in love. They're about going to space. They're about, mysteries in some forgotten Russian village. This is what most of what the Institute for the Development of Internet does. However, almost every one of those projects is injected in one way or another with Russian propaganda. Nope. Okay. So how did Russian propaganda get to the point where it's just so modern? Shows, TV, commercials, movies. Well, it started like many things did with the fall of the Soviet Union. Because this is a very important moment, because most people who run this very modern Russian propaganda, like Alexei Goroslavsky, they're about 45 to 50. So that's Russian Gen X. What happened with Russian Gen X is their moment of, let's say, growing up, of like their formative moment was this: the Soviet Union collapsed. And they were 15 to 20, that kind of age. So everything they believed in, everything that was instilled in them by their parents, by the state, by their school, turned out to be like a major lie. Like the Soviet Union doesn't exist. Lenin was an idiot. The system never worked. Whatever. And the West is our friend, and America's our friend. So what happened with those people is that at a very crucial moment in their lives, everything they believed in broke down. And many of them sort of lost their moral compass after that. They kind of never really recovered, especially with the system of values. And a lot of them ended up, like this Alexei guy, a lot of them ended up working for the state. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, you started doing a lot of stuff that was previously completely illegal. Model photo shoots in Moscow, nightclubs, and also AK-47 at a nightclub. You could do that. That was the wild 90s. One of the most important things for the purpose of this lecture that you could do was contemporary art. Now, in the Soviet Union, Soviet contemporary art, not the socialist realist art that was, state approved, Lenin, worker, Stahanovite, not that. If you were to do some independent art in the Soviet Union, you would be, I don't know, you'd have exhibitions like in an apartment, secret ones, because KGB. If they were to find out, you could be arrested if that art was, provocative enough. And it was a very low bar for provoking the KGB. So the Soviet Union fell, and you could do contemporary art. You could do art. And especially in what the Russians are very known for, I mean, like take Pussy Riot, for instance, is performance art. And this guy, his name is Alexander Brenner. This is his 95 performance. So he went on the Red Square in boxing gloves, like boxing trunks, everything. And he called Yeltsin. He was like, box me, because I don't want you to fight in Chechnya. Like, I'll box you. Like, whoever wins gets to do his thing. Like, if I win, you don't go to Chechnya. So contemporary art became a thing, especially like in Moscow, St. Petersburg, these intellectual circles. And what was very important is that you could make money off of it. Just like you can here, just like there's the Gagosian gallery in New York, you could make money off of it in Russia. So you could sell things like this that would never before be seen, like in the Soviet times. And the guy who opened the first gallery in Russia, the most important gallery, is this guy. His name is Marat Gelman, Moldovan-born, well, Soviet-born, but Moldovan-born art critic. He did open his own gallery and became probably the most influential dealer of contemporary art in Russia. That's one side of what he did. Another side is this. The guy was incredibly adept at understanding media, understanding just what the public wants, marketing. Because to sell contemporary art, you have to be very good at marketing. So him and the Ukraine-born Gleb Pavlovsky, passed away recently, a couple of years ago. What they founded was a company that would essentially advertise governments It was called the Effective Policy Foundation. And their most successful campaign is this: Putin's win in 2000. They've orchestrated most of it. They gave him the image of this. Like, if you see Putin now, the manly, shirtless, on a bear, flying in space underwater, that's them. This is the guy, this Gleb Pavlovsky. They came up with the masculine image. They came up with the idea that he, as president, he should, like, as part of his campaign, major emphasis should be placed on the war in Chechnya, on pacifying this region, on uniting Mother Russia, and on being, most importantly, a much healthier president than his alcoholic predecessor, who had like the lowest ratings imaginable. So this is Gleb Pavlovsky, and this guy here, right under the portrait, is Vladislav Surkov, massively important figure in Russia, in Russian propaganda. Now, this guy, he was, well, first of all, when I worked at the Kremlin, I worked for him. I worked for Vladislav Surkov. He was Stephen Miller. So you would understand, because previously, like, for instance, the Biden administration didn't have like a Stephen Miller, the ideology guy, the guy who would actually go and try to, convey what they want, regardless of what it is. So he was definitely not as extreme. I know it sounds strange, but he was not as extreme as an American politician. But that's what he did. So he staged everything. He created political parties that fought with each other. He looked at Russia and he saw, well, okay, some people, they missed the communists. So he created the modern version of the Communist Party. Some people are left-leaning, like European left-leaning, create a socialist party. Hardcore nationalists, a lot of them fighting in Ukraine now, another party of their own. And of course, he handled all propaganda, all media relations, everything. In addition to that, he wrote poetry, he wrote songs for popular rock bands that sang them, not horrible, really. And he was just this massive, great cardinal of Russia. With him and with Marat Gelman came this guy. He also has an arts degree. I'm sorry, I forgot about Surkov. Just one thing. The way he appeared in the Russian media's landscape, he was head of marketing for Mikhail Khodorkovsky for a decade. He was Khodorkovsky's right-hand man, the Khodorkovsky, the dissident, whom Putin jailed. He was his right-hand man when it comes to TV advertising, public relations, just everything. He was so good, the Kremlin took him in. So, and this was my commanding officer, you could say, Konstantin Rykov. He's also, he came from art. He studied art, contemporary art in Russia. He was on the team with Marat Gelman, who came in to get Putin to become president. And they were hired in part by the Yeltsin administration. They started working on television. They started modernizing Russian political media in a way that it hasn't been modernized ever before. In comparison, when this was happening, so late 90s, early 2000s, in America, they were still running political ads where your opponent would be shown in black and white. I think they still do that. So very conservative, as opposed to them extremely modern. So what Rykov understood, first of all, was this. So he looked at audience not as a politician, not as someone from the Soviet Union who was like, we're going to tell you what to do, like, go die motherland. No, he looked at it like an advertising guy, like me. I'm an advertising guy. So market research, storytelling, what's your audience thinking, and refine and repeat, refine and repeat. He learned this, and he learned the internet, becoming Russia's first digital propagandist, here in 95, when he came on an exchange program that was launched by Gorbachev. So he spent some time in the US, learned English, first went online here, everything, and came back to Russia with a bunch of ideas. And again, he's also Russian. He's also Russian Gen X. So very confused, good, bad, anything, but very he strives to be modern. He strives to he sees this new digital frontier and he believes in it. This is where I come in. So Putin was already elected. I started working out of college. I started working during my junior year in college, undergrad, for Konstantin Rykov. And one of the products that Rykov did, that Rykov came up with, was a magazine. It was a lifestyle magazine. Why lifestyle magazine? Because 2004, 2005, 6, thanks to a certain US president who invaded a certain Middle Eastern country in 2003, oil prices skyrocketed. And that essentially solidified Putin's hold on power, like nothing else, because Russian GDP grew 11-fold in about 5 or 6 years. And a lot of people got rich, not like mafia people, but oil people, people who had to do with, Moscow, the government, everything. And this was their symbol. This is the key meme of that time, of the oil-rich petrodollar state. So it says life is good, and it's black caviar on red caviar. And so Russia. So what I did, I was a director and co-publisher of a magazine. This magazine was called Bourgeois Magazine, Bourgeois Journal. It was wonderfully, very slick design, printed in Finland. It was printed in Finland. Lifestyle magazine, much like GQ Rob Report. If you guys don't know Rob Report, it's a magazine for the rich by the rich. It's has yacht advertisements. This was essentially it. The head producer of the magazine was this guy who now runs the Institute for the Internet Development, Alexei Groslavsky. So a lot of people came from Rykov's internet empire. Now, this was a very interesting magazine, considering it was Rykov, and he knew his target audience, not just, he was flawless at it. So if you were poor, you couldn't get it. You couldn't even buy it. Because this magazine, it was distributed for free only in the best restaurants in Moscow, only in the most expensive 5-star hotels. So if you could pay $20-$30 for a cup of coffee, you'd be reading this. If not, no. You would never even see it. You'd never know that it existed. But that made sure that the rich people got it. And when the rich people read it, they were fed Kremlin propaganda in a very lovely format. So this guy here, I couldn't find I think they burned the entire print of the magazine. So this guy here, and I know the resolution is bad. His name is Vladimir Medinsky. He is currently head of Russia's negotiating team in Turkey versus Ukraine. Hardcore nationalist, Putin's advisor. And he's on the cover of this magazine. Now it's the early 2000s, so obviously he's not doing this whole Ukraine stuff. Not yet. Not yet. So, and you can see, I translated the editor's letter for this issue, just so you can see how propaganda was integrated into a lifestyle magazine, how it goes from topic to topic, essentially, and you get both. You get what you want as a rich person, as someone who just came into a lot of money, all about consumerism, and as someone whom the Kremlin needs, to imbibe their talking point. So you start with Russian journalism almost dead, and Putin is essentially the lone protagonist of the story. It sounds much more beautiful. I'm just not going to read the whole text. You can do that. And we're sitting down with Nikolai Oskol, who's the editor-in-chief of GQ Russia, which is a huge magazine back then. It's GQ, it's Condé Nast, it's real American GQ with a Russian editor. And Andrei Kolesnikov, who's the chief correspondent for the Kremlin. He's the guy who follows Putin around. He had the best stories, the best insights, everything, right? We sit down and talk. What's your job like? glossy magazines, lifestyle parties. And what's your job? Putin, Kremlin, all that stuff. And essentially this paragraph here in this magazine, it equates the two. It sort of shows you Kremlin, Putin, some very dark stuff as something that's just equal to like GQ. And on the cover, Vladimir Medinsky. Inside, Vladimir Medinsky and Mila Jovovich, who is brilliant actress for Fifth Element, but I guess that's a very old film. So, but still, she was a major Hollywood star at the time, and the magazine was persistent enough, and I would say rich enough to come here, do a photo shoot with her, everything. And of course, then it goes Mercedes's trimmed by IWC, which is a company that has like $100,000 watches. They're all sold out, and Russians want a celebration. That's a good thing. So this is what I work on. This is a very early example. I know it's not digital, but it's a very early example that I want to show you of just how you can integrate Kremlin's messaging. There are no guys here that go like, kill, nothing like that. The guy who sort of like transmits the Kremlin's talking point, sitting in a very nice suit, like black and white photo, everything. You're consuming this with cars, with Tiffany silver. And it's amazing. And you don't know, okay. Now, Rykov, he went on to create Zaputina, I'm sorry. He went on to create Zaputina. Zaputina in Russian, za means for, Putina, Putin. So the website is called For Putin. This is 2007. Now, this website is quote unquote grassroots. It's totally not. But the aim of this website was like it goes like this, and then this is the separate part, but I had to merge them together. So the design is actually not this world. The aim of this website was to get as many votes as possible to sort of make a grassroots campaign for Putin to go and seek unconstitutional third presidential term. Now, I haven't worked on this project, but this is 2007. This already has a social media-like thing to it. You can upload your photo. It says like, закачай фото, добавь Путина, which means upload your photo and add Putin as a friend, Putin. Yeah. So like and this is, again, Facebook was essentially just released to the general public and not in Russia. No one, I don't think even Facebook was localized in the Russian language. This already has a social media element to it. Real photos, people can interact. It, over here, it's sort of like, it compiled all the news that it could about Putin. Only good news, obviously. It had a viral game. It's called Putin Chess. You play chess with Putin. When you win, he goes like this. When you lose, I think, too, you vote for him in any case. What they also had, Rykov's invention, brilliant. These attractive women that he hired as correspondents for this website. And they would go to press conferences, various press conferences, like political press conferences, like election headquarters, like whatnot. They would raise their hand and like they would get up, they'd be wearing makeup, very like striking, and be like, Maria Ivanova, za Putina, which to the like television cameras and everyone would sound, Maria Ivanova is for Putin. So like this repetitive branding, it worked. Often better than most brands could sell their very commercial products, because even Nike didn't manage to like insert itself like a political conference is going on or something like this, and boom, you hear the website name. Then 2007, Rykov created Russia's first fully online television. I don't think they even have an online TV here. Not yet, probably. He created, it was called Russia.ru. Absolutely wild, because it had shows, it had political analysis, it had live streaming, it had video, recorded video. Because at some point, and I spoke to him about this, of course he said this in numerous interviews, he said young people don't want to watch TV. And he realized that about 20 years ago, that you want to watch what you want to watch. Like you want to select your own media. So he's going to give it to you. And all of it is going to be, this is Vladimir Putin. Almost all of it. So that was Russia.ru. Its slogan was glory to Russia. A month ago or 2 months ago, a Ukrainian POW returned from Russian captivity, and he had the words Slava. I see these words sort of scarred on his abdomen. And I believe, thankfully, the Ukrainian doctors removed this whole thing. It was horrible. But a slogan that was created by this artsy kid that went to the US, internet, everything, very stylish, understood media, understood lifestyle magazines, it ends up here.
Allegedly.
Well, no, it became the battle cry. It became like Slava is glory, so like Slava Ukraini, in Ukraine, glory to Ukraine. But this became the battle cry of the Russian military operation. Slava России and Slava Geroyam России. So glory to Russia.
Allegedly, the Russians did that.
No, it's very much the Russians. He returned from captivity with this. Like it was
Okay, we're gonna let him continue and get through his talk before.
very much in the news. So fast forward to a little later. We're gonna fast forward now. What's this? Okay, so BuzzFeed, Business Insider, what is it? Korea Times. We know most of these publications, not Korea Times, but like Business Insider, BuzzFeed. This is Lindsay Lohan. She was really big back then. This is 2011. So Russian guy touches 1,000 women's boobs for politics or something. Russian man touches 1,000 women's breasts for Putin. Russian man. So this was a viral campaign that was so successful that made it like across the border, something which rarely happens in Russian propaganda. So I'll play, it's not the full video because the full video is traumatizing, but I will play. So that's Putin shaking his hand. And essentially he ropes 1,000 women. Most, I think, consensual. I don't know, but this was done not by a guy, some guy who came up with an idea. He was not a YouTuber. He was the owner of a major online advertising agency. Back in 2010, 2011, they were already working with YouTube, with influencers, like proto-influencers. They had their own shows. They did their own videos. They did campaigns for major commercial brands as part of, so this 2011, 2012, Putin goes on to be president fourth term, I think, yeah, something like that. So this is pre-election. And this is the Kremlin. Does it look like the Kremlin? No, it looks like a crazy YouTube guy that is just so bonkers that he makes it to BuzzFeed News. Like you would never, like for Putin, what? Like no, and these guys, his name is Guru Diktyarov. He was known then for making a ton of anti-Navalny videos, just absolutely crazy fascist anti-Navalny propaganda. So he's in part responsible for a lot of what happened to Alexei Navalny. If we're talking about the propaganda side of it. Massively fast forward to the war. So selling this war to the Russian people, very few examples here because we don't have a lot of time. This is a Russian soldiers with their like half swastika thingy. When you sell the war, you would think like generally, this is what kind of happens. Like a very 1940s style rally, screaming old guys, flags. Not really. You know, I did not translate the Russian words, but for those of you who don't speak Russian, it says influencer marketing, product placement, brand storytelling. So everything that an ad agency, a modern ad agency, marketing agency would say. They're called a hype agency. And I think you saw a bunch of familiar logos there, right? Reebok, L'Oreal, a lot of other ones, like a lot of like American companies, just international companies. Adidas, I think, was there. Well, it is these guys, among others, who are selling the war to the Russian people online. And just so you understand, I put this is their show reel. Like they all have show reels because they're all commercial agencies. They all make money from regular commercial products. They will make money. Like if you're Reebok, you come to them and you're like, well, I have like this new sneaker that I want to promote. You're like, okay, this is the kind of campaign you want. Like, let's do it. If you're the Kremlin, you also come to them just like that with an advertising brief, because that's how people in the Kremlin, that's how the Kremlin propaganda comes. They come with a brief. They're like, well, we need this and this. We need to reach this audience. Give us your thoughts. And they get paid for the Kremlin contracts much, much more. So essentially, in Russia, and it's been like this for years, you could have White & Kennedy, which is a US based, I worked with them. It's a US based advertising agency that they came up with Just Do It for Nike. Well, they could be doing campaigns for Trump just on the side. And this is one of their campaigns. It went viral. Oh, I'm sorry. This is one of their influencers. Her name is Yekaterina Isaeva. It's Moscow. And here, so we see rather typical Instagram influencer. Like if you look at her Instagram, Dubai restaurants, revealing dresses, just lots of makeup, like very modern Eastern European Instagram. That's her in Dubai, probably. This is her doing something else.
Oh, excuse me, are these yours? I'd like to thank you for your work. White flowers. Please take them. White flowers for you, because you do great work. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for your work. Thank you for what you do for us. We have great faith in you. Thanks a lot. Oh, hello. Please take these, they're for you. I would like to thank you for your work. With you, we feel safe.
I mean, they're bombing Russia almost every day, and I would not feel safe with that guy. Still, so we see something that was invented in part by Konstantin Lyrikov, which is a young, attractive woman with a social media following. Right now, he invented this stuff way before Instagram, before like these social networks came about, before TikTok, before this visual content that now dominates us. But her feed is this, and that. So you scroll and you sort of like it just inserts itself into you. Her entire feed is not, I like Vladimir Putin. No one's going to watch that. And her entire feed is also not this, because no one's going to hold her as a star in this advertising agency, because they have their own influencers. They have a pool. that they sort of assign these tasks to. So sometimes she advertises clothing. Sometimes she advertises cars, like she advertises like the latest Chinese vehicles, because Russians, they can't have European cars now officially, so they have Chinese dealerships, Chinese cars. And this is the campaign that made her famous. This is called the 1% campaign. Now, it happened in September 2022. Ukraine launched a counteroffensive so crazy that it almost obliterated the Russian army. Like, it destroyed them. Like, they were taking, right now, the war is maybe, I don't know, 1 kilometer a day, 100 meters, sometimes less. September 2022, blitzkrieg. Just in a matter of days, entire oblasts, regions, states were liberated from Russia. President Putin, it is said, even by numerous American officials, that was the only time when he was truly considering using nuclear weapons, because like his army was just like it was falling. That, like, the Russian army has never fallen before. And that's why he launched a mobilization effort. They called it partial mobilization, which is very weird because it's either mobilization or not, but they called it partial. And they said 300,000 people. We only want 300,000 people. That's it. We're not going to mobilize you anymore. And people started panicking. Oh my God, they started panicking the hell out. 1 million Russian men, males, military age, left the country immediately in the coming just days. And under a week, you would see, like, if you look at photos, long lines to like the border with Georgia, with European states. It was wild. So the Kremlin needed to launch something to prevent the men from leaving. And you don't want to launch like the army or the special forces on every checkpoint that are going to shoot you, because that's what Stalin did. But that's not what these guys do. Like, you don't, Russia's not like that. It's more like this. It's more like they're going to convince you. So they launched this media campaign. It was called 1%. And essentially, it has these influencers, mostly female, is 1% of candy all on. Well, all we hear about is mobilization, she says. But let's talk about the actual criteria, the numbers. Only 300,000 will be selected. And that's just 1% of those who have already served. So 1% of the reserve, basically. 1%, friends. Remember the candy. Those not subject to mobilization are basically never going to be mobilized. So, and she says this is aimed at solving one main task: controlling the liberated territories. Again, at this point, Russia is not just losing control. It is like, if the Ukrainians wanted, they would have entered Russia. The hashtag, because you got to have a hashtag for a campaign, it's called Don't Panic. BS Panic without panic. Same campaign, one French fry. Also lovely. And one, I want to say lipstick. Yes. So it was a woman. I could only grab a screenshot. It was a woman who sort of poured her entire like purse, and she was like, "Look at how many lipsticks I have. 1%. That's just like one lipstick. Like, you don't have to worry. No, don't panic." You're gonna want to watch this. So this they launched on social media, some television stations.
There are about 75 million men in Russia, with 25 million being reserves. Of these 25 million people, only 1% are being mobilized, the most prepared and those who've ever undergone military training. So addressing you, dear Ivan Ivanovich from Lypes, who has never undergone military training, relax, finish your vanilla latte, and continue with your graphic design. Nobody freaking needs you. Don't panic.
Nobody freaking.
There are about 75 million men in Russia.
Essentially the same campaign.
The most prepared individuals.
This
from
one.
military training.
Virtually the same
So,
text.
To the average.
This is launched at the
soldier
younger
of
IT
Lypes,
crowd.
who has never had military training.
Like, you never want the IT guys to
You can
leave.
safely relax and finish your coffee
So
Nobody
I
gives a
lost
damn about you there.
coffee.
Don't panic.
Don't. I mean, come on. This is wild, isn't it? This is like a legitimate campaign. So you have these girls with their makeup and French fries and candy and like these ads, like nobody freaking needs you. You're like an idiot. Yeah, they almost all died. So this is the percentage of the deaths of the mobilized. This is at I think this is a 2 month old chart of no, this is a 5 month old chart of confirmed deaths. So this is prison volunteers. They don't know. This is different, kind of like private military companies, etc. And a lot of the mobilized died. So of this 1%, you know, it was, but in the campaign, just so you understand the cynicism, it was a piece of candy. It was a French fry. So, however, this is not being talked about enough. The mobilization effort was wildly unpopular. It was incredibly unpopular. It was probably the worst thing that Putin had done. It was worse than declaring the war in Ukraine. 1 million men fled. Just these campaigns, like it didn't really work. Like no matter how flashy and fun they are, they didn't really work. So what Putin did, what they keep doing now, and one of the reasons why Russia still holds on to territory it has in Ukraine while it can replenish the troops. Look at these ads. These are enlistment ads for the Russian army. What is the biggest thing, the largest font on every single ad? Is it, any of you read Russian? Is any of it like glory to Russia? Is any of it sacrifice yourself? I want you. No, it's the money. 5 million rubles, 5.5 million rubles. That's at 80. That's probably how much an American private first class gets for 1 year of service. Just so you kind of understand the money involved in this. 1.5 million, 1 million. This is how most Russians end up in the war. So they couldn't really, they could convince them that the war is okay, but to get people to fight, they started paying them off heavily. And essentially in that sense, Putin created, and I know a lot in the Russian opposition, a lot of people who spoke here would very much disagree, but Russia, 1,000 men a day enlist for this money. And de facto, it's the largest mercenary force in the world now because they're all fighting for money. Now, little bonus, remember this guy, right? Like he was at the beginning wearing a varsity jacket. When the Kremlin invaded Ukraine, the West left for the most part. Like McDonald's left, Burger King stayed, Subway stayed, Reebok stayed, Nike left. So the Kremlin launched, Netflix left, which is important. And the Kremlin launched, it's on Netflix. It's called Wink, as in wink, wink. You know what you're watching. It's called Wink, and it's a legitimate streaming service. Look, they got Succession, all licensed. This isn't pirated. Succession, Barry, Chernobyl, and a bunch of Russian original content. That content is made by this Internet Development Institute studio. Not by that, it's financed by it. It's made by private studios with directors, et cetera, people who have nothing to do with the Kremlin, but it's financed by the Kremlin. So here, it's very hard to open the website. I would open it for you, but you need a Russian VPN. So you can see like it's Succession, but then it's like a Russian film about heroes of World War II. And then it's like also very, I don't know, Game of Thrones. They have Game of Thrones, everything. And then it's mixed with Russian propaganda. So even This is Kremlin owned. The head of the Nationalne Media Group, a national media group, which owns formally this wing, is Putin's alleged girlfriend and the alleged mother of two of his children, Olympic gold medalist Elina Kabaeva, gymnast. I don't know why they gave her this corporation, but like she heads like all this media stuff in Russia now. So next, I want to talk a little, just like we're nearing the end, like half a minute. So it's not just the media. Modern branding doesn't work solely through visuals. You got to touch something. You know, like if you're a very expensive brand, like Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, whatever, you have to have like a point of contact with the consumer. Most consumers could not afford a bag by Prada. It costs $5,000 or $10,000. I don't know. They could afford perfume. So perfume is considered the cheapest way for the consumer to touch physically a brand that otherwise would be out of reach. It's a lifestyle. Prada is a lifestyle. Dolce & Gabbana is a lifestyle. And this is a lifestyle. So these guys, it's a photo shoot for a clothing brand. It looks like Columbia. Looking closer, oh my God, what Putin team? There it is. A modern Russian apparel company called Putin Team with, again, modern campaigns, diverse models, everything. That's called Putin Team. Because you need for your brand to become someone's lifestyle. Like it cannot just be Putin on television. It cannot just be you're scrolling and they're showing you one French fry. You got to wear it. You got to touch it. And just so you know, this guy's wearing the Putin Team Russia jacket. So you can buy a Putin varsity jacket and, you know, sport it across Russia. They have stores all over the country in malls. So this is, a lot of them are in place of like H&M, for instance, that left the country. Zara left the country. Like a lot of mass market left the country. This is mass market. Now, the brand, it's a private brand. It is not owned by the state. It's a private enterprise. You guys are taking photos. I knew you were going to like this. So it's a private enterprise. It has designers working for it. It's a for-profit thing, obviously. You know, these lovely looking stores, very modern. Like this is very modern. Like the collections change everything. Y'all want, you can get a gift card. Who can has gift cards? I know it's from the first image that I showed you with the kill America, glory to Russia, Jesus on our side, to this, because most people, they come into contact with this side. They come into contact with the modern consumer economy, with stores, with social networks. So what we see here as propaganda is these like massive like television spectacles. That's not something that really touches kind of the hearts of the people, because Putin at this point with this, he's part of the modern media. He's part of consumerism lifestyle. He's part of the modern, like look at this. He's part of the modern urban experience. So let's play this. Because, and here's the approach. When you're doing propaganda, you shouldn't tell people what to do. You should. Right now, 2025, you have to become part of the culture. Well, is this playing? Oh, it's not playing. That's so bad. Hold on. Okay. So you have to become part of the culture. Because if people have to sing with you, this is all propaganda, just so you know. People have to dream with you. They got to laugh with you. This is a very government approved comic stand-up show. If you're doing propaganda, people have to fall in love with you. This is a movie I wrote. It #1 Russian film of 2015. The 11 show. And you have to have these people, they have to dance with you. They got to dance with you under the stars. Because otherwise, how are they going to die for you? Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, thanks. That was really interesting and amazing visuals. So please introduce yourself before you pose your question, and please no monologues so that we have time for everybody to pose their question and hear a solid response from our speaker. Yes.
Hi, my name is My name is Valeria. I've been working in the field of cognitive warfare for quite some time. First in Ukraine, running a country disintegration program, and then now with the EU and in the UK, trying to persuade democracies that we can't win if we always try to be rational and do fact checking and be reactive instead of being proactive. So wonderful presentation. Thank you for that. But my question, I had two questions. I know I'm supposed to ask two, but first one is very personal. So when you were in that system, what did you feel back then? And when was this breakthrough moment for you when you actually got out of it? What did you go through? What was the starting point? And the second question is, because Russia had the luxury to pour in as much money as they want in that whole production, do you think they measure the results at all? What's the percentage of failures in all of those campaigns? What's the attribution? Is there any measurement system in place? Because I think it's a big deal here if you were to do something like that. So yeah, these are questions.
I'll answer it in reverse order. So at some point, the favorite word in these media circles, pro-Kremlin advertising, it was KPI, so коэффициент полезной деятельности, which means the coefficient of usefulness percentage-wise. So if you spend like $1 million, how much money did you get your worth? Like, was it like $300,000 worth of efficiency? Like how efficient this is. So everyone, I think in America, key performance indicator, that's what they're called. In Russian, KPI here, it's key performance indicator. So they did have that. Since there's a lot of money there, it's not like they're really austere about these things. But of course, if you're advertising agency, if you're a contractor, nothing's happening with your campaigns. Like you're probably not going to get them unless you're like really good friends with like the guys who assign the budgets. So that answers your second question. First question, well, how did I feel? I would say this. When I started working at the magazine, so I was 20, something like that. Yeah, didn't really feel anything about that because I was making obscene amounts of money to the point where I stopped going to the university. Almost. I went back later. Just obscene amounts of money. I would go to parties with, I don't know, Hollywood stars that came to Russia and singers and palaces with like in limos and stuff. I would live the life of someone who was publishing a major, not a major, but a very important glossy magazine. And, whenever I got bored, I just went to the Dominican Republic at 20 or 21. So you don't really kind of understand what is happening, especially considering it's like 2004, 5, 6. It's not like Putin. He's a legitimate president. He is legitimately late. back then, definitely. No wars, nothing like that. And you're like, well, okay, so they're doing an interview with Alexander Dugin, who is a key Russia fascist ideologue. And there's an ad for a Mercedes, and this Mercedes, they can give it to me for a test drive. So you pay attention to the Mercedes. I left in 2011, so before Crimea, before everything. I left because you could see how the propaganda has shifted from sort of perception to just more direct. Like at least where I worked in television. I created a TV show, talk show, and you could see we would start getting these instructions like bash this guy, destroy that guy, and that sort of tipped the scales for me, and I left. So.
So first in the back, and then we'll move up to yes.
Hi, my name is Gigi. I study Russian security policy, but you mentioned I saw on there's discussion and all those shows. Are the networks and production companies aware that Russia is licensing their products? My second question is, I'm curious about the efficacy now of the propaganda war machine. 4 years in, you have soldiers coming home. Many of them have not seen a penny. I'm assuming these threats, this war is just continuous. I'm curious if Russians are actually believing what's being fed to them.
Thanks. So first, I don't know the exact situation with licensing. I know the way it works is you don't really buy a license for like months or a year. If they bought a license for 5 years, they have it for 5 years. Just like I know there's a bunch of foreign brands in Russia. They don't own them anymore, but the franchisee still owns the license to have it like a Reebok store. So Reebok has to honor this. And I'm guessing HBO, WB, they have to honor these. They don't work there anymore. Only major film companies don't work in Russia anymore. Small ones do. You could watch Anora was released publicly in Russia in a normal release. They made money in Russia. But this I think is licensed. I think they know in the West. I think it's more of a legal thing, or they just keep renewing the license for money. Second, well, I don't exactly agree with what you said that many of the warriors, Russian mercenary people, are not getting paid. They are for the most part because this is how Russians, independent journalists, investigators, this is how they know how many people had died, because you know that Russia pays the family $5 million rubles per family member who died in the war. And they can see the budget and they can see the payouts. Entire Russian regions that were the poorest regions before the war, their economy had completely changed because so much money is pouring in. So like you get people who are making tens of thousands of dollars a year, as opposed to they would make $6,000 a year. So they would make, I don't know, 600,000, 400,000 rubles. Here's 5 million. That's how they essentially get you. So Russians, when it comes to the war, they are not against the war that much, because those who fight, they get paid. It's not a duty, it's a lucrative job. People, I just recently spoke to an expert off the record, but he told me in Russia, if you die on the war, your neighbors, your friends, they're not going to be like, he died a hero. They're going to be like, well, he took on a risky job. It didn't work out. But, this family got his 5 mil, he got his 2 mil. So, they bought an apartment, but, it's Russian roulette. He got the payout. And that's how it's regarded. So, in that sense, again, 1,000 Russians a day sign up. So the propaganda, it works. As of now, the key message is the inevitability of Russian victory. But it's not that we have to fight. Most Russians want to negotiate and they want peace on their terms. When you hear a lot of analytics, when you hear a lot of independent outlets from Russia, opposition politicians say, well, the true Russia wants peace and wants negotiations. Yes, on their terms. You could see it in the polling. They want to keep, most of the country wants to keep the occupied lands. They want more to get the oblasts they're fighting for. So, and the ones who fight get paid. So I would say propaganda is in Russia not nearly as powerful as the paycheck. And that's how they get you. Like, it's not brainwashing. It's literally a bag of money that gets you there.
She said.
Yeah, that's kind of.
That's right. Maybe I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, my name is Jana. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. And I got a question, like, it's not related that much to the sort of modern propaganda, but since I got the experience in working in debunking Russian propaganda, I'm Ukrainian, I worked for a Ukrainian NGO in this field. And every day I had to read like all these propaganda, like Telegram channels and watch all the Solovyev videos. I felt like I was brainwashed myself after that. But my question is, you showed us like the people who are like on the top of that. So they're like thinking about how to do that and like the strategy and stuff. So it's obvious that they know what they're doing. But in terms of like journalists, like, okay, we take Solovyev and his colleagues and all the owners and like of Telegram channels, they literally write like every half an hour about something. So I really got the impression that they really believe in what they write about. So from your experience, since you were there like inside, yeah, it was many years ago and the propaganda wasn't like that aggressive and obvious that it's now. But do you think they really believe in what they are talking about, or they are still like just trying to manipulate at the same time having like, I don't know, different opinion?
I say it differs. So the Telegram channels, Voyenkory, which is the military correspondents, as they call themselves. These are propagandists who are essentially embedded with the army. So they took on this invention of 2003 America, where you could embed the troops with like the Marines storming Fallujah. You would have a guy from the Wall Street Journal with them. Same thing. Worse, much worse actually, but same concept. So
Why do you say worse? Because there are more of them?
well, there are more of them, and they're very militant, and but they are strangely, and this is what's dangerous for Putin, they are very often objective. These are the people who would not be like, we're going to win Kyiv in 3 days. No, they're going to be like, well, we have shortages of this, this, this. So there's a certain set of rules as to how they operate. Most important of which is you never criticize Putin. You never criticize Putin. You can criticize the generals. You can criticize the brass, and you can be a volunteer. You can donate. You can like have these grassroots campaigns for drones, whatnot, these things. But in quarter, the military correspondents, they do believe in this. They are in war zones. They get killed. They're horrible propagandists. They rejoice at deaths, but they are there. They obviously make money, but they want to be there. They really are under shelling, as opposed to Vladimir Solovyov, who's in Moscow surrounded by bodyguards. So I would say those guys do believe in it. The people in the middle, obviously, I don't exactly communicate with a lot of Russians nowadays because of everything, obviously, and they hate me because I donate to like Ukrainian armed forces, and that to them is like a no-no, obviously. But when I spoke to them, they get paid much more. Their agencies get paid much more, and they pay influencers much less, because when the influencers now it goes like this. So for instance, a popular Russian singer, or an it girl, I don't know, like the Russian Chloe Sevigny, if you guys know who that is, like a Russian it girl with 5 million followers, right? She would get paid. She would get paid, I don't know, like $100,000, $300,000 for like one or a series of posts about an initiative, one or another, or a government initiative, or elections, or something like a post, like she would be like on Bali or something. It's like, I kind of thought about it, like, don't like elections. But I mean, who is there apart from Vladimir Putin? So I'm probably going to vote for him. So like, bye. And that's $300,000. That's how it's done. And these would be genuinely popular influencers. They would not be popular because they work with the state. They're popular, and that's why the state works with them. So what they told me was that, so right now you don't pay them $300,000 or 100. You call them and you're like, this is $50,000, and God forbid they say no, because then they go in the bad kids list, and that's a bad list. Like, you don't want to be there. So all these people who at some point were doing this propaganda, they are sort of like bound by blood at this point, and they got to do it less profitable. I don't know if they believe it. It's very cynical. It's extremely cynical. A friend of mine visited New York recently. He was a second assistant director, which is not a very high-ranking position in any movie production. He's now a famous director because everyone above him left. So it's a very Holocausty kind of thing. Like, the store next door closed, and you became like the guy who sells the bread on the street, and you became rich. So it's very much a situation like that there, not to compare the four, but like just so many people left, so many people in these industries. He became famous, he became rich, he owns a number of Range Rovers, and he came here, and we were having dinner at a restaurant here. He couldn't use any of his cards, so he had he had like $20,000 on him, like he was just cash, because he was like, what can I do? None of my cards work. And he was talking to me, and he was like, nothing changed. Like, I don't know why you don't live there. Like, I haven't been living in Russia for some years now, but he's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, okay, so sometimes they bomb us, but like otherwise, just nothing really changed. Amazing restaurants. So people there, they did kind of get used to, maybe, I'm guessing a lot of Ukrainians probably also got used to like the bombing, like you keep living your regular life, but to them it's much more cynical. Like the guys on the battlefield, yeah, you have to believe in something to be on the battlefield, because that. I think the saying is there are no atheists in the trenches, something like that. So yeah, those guys are hardcore.
Yes.
Andrew Scott Solomon. I'm 60 years old. I'm a retired mathematics alumnus from Columbia. So I don't have my geopolitical background until about 3 years ago was just watching MSNBC. But now, for the last 3 years, I've been watching these online shows, which you might call esoteric geopolitical online media, which kind of range from right to left. And everything you've said during this talk would sort of be assigned by them to just lying corporate media, just neocon garbage, basically. Everything you've said today. I mean, it's maybe in form, not a lie, but in sort of and I'm just wondering if you know about these programs like the Duran, Useful Idiots, Dialogue Works, that are not, the guests on these programs are not wackos like you would see on InfoWars or something like that. These are, the former deputy to Colin Powell, or guys in veteran intelligence professionals for sanity, and guys who were in the CIA, and guys, I mean, these are very reputable academics, like neutrality studies. And I wonder if you have any familiarity with these shows and just how obscene your talk would appear through their eyes.
I have zero familiarity with those shows. I'll be honest, just absolutely none. I would say, like this, what the talk was about was, you could call this conspiracy, but like in the American sense, and when we talk about conspiracy, you can only talk about like mass media and popular culture, where it's like, this is what we think about when we say conspiracy. I would say that it is sort of conspiratorial.
They would criticize it from being conspiratorial. They would say, Team Putin. Okay, well, I could see a sportswear company called Team JFK. That wouldn't rub anyone in the US the wrong way. It's just every political leader we've had since JFK has been a war criminal. And a lot of them are on the Columbia faculty, like
Okay,
Victoria
why don't we let
Nuland.
him answer?
Well, I think, I don't know if it would rub people the wrong way or not. The current US president has his own merch. These guys were first, Putin team. I think they look better against the Trump poll, his kind of like golden Bibles and stuff. So I think we're headed towards it because that's how you grab attention. That's how you do branding. I think everyone is going to have it. Like if you're a big time influencer, you now have a brand. Like Kim Kardashian, like she has like a very popular brand. So politicians, big time politicians, they are influencers, probably the ultimate ones, and they have their own brands. So I'm sure this is going to happen here. But no, I'm not familiar with any shows.
Trump's granddaughter just came out with her clothing brand filmed at the White House. That was sort of like the last 2 days.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's initials. The font, it's interesting about the font because the font's really small on the Trump brand. And on hers, it was also like a little bit, well, it was her initials, I believe, but still, it's a little bit like not hitting you over the head per se. Anyway, yes.
I'm a student from engineering school. I'm from China. I really learned a lot from your speech and the question from the audience. I have a question about the Gen X you have mentioned before, because you said that the people like of Russian Gen X, they experienced the breakdown of the Soviet Union, so they may have the confusion or the faith, the collapse of their faith in their life. So I want to know like how the propaganda you mentioned, like later the modern propaganda of Russia related to branding or consumer economic capture the characteristic of the Gen X of the Russian. Thank you.
Okay, so Gen X, they're over 50 now, age-wise. I think in Russia, these people were raised, their formative experiences were the fall of the Soviet Union, McDonald's, MTV, Western bands, massive Western bands, concerts coming in, playing on the Red Square, Yeltsin being an alcoholic, your country being like an international disgrace, poverty, your first trip abroad. So these are very different experiences from like the space shuttle disaster that happened here. These are different experiences. So like with the advent of the internet, millennials and Zoomers across the world, we kind of started having the same experiences, give or take. But for the Soviet crowd, like the 90s to them was like turning on as like MTV and like nightclubs and stuff. So that kind of formulated them. There was no propaganda in the 90s that much because freedom of speech, every oligarch had his own TV channel, soon to be here probably. And you can't really say that propaganda form kind of like created them or brainwashed them or anything like that. But they did really not care about what they do and who they hurt. Like it just like it didn't matter. So in that sense, they just started doing it. Like it was very much the same. Like I know contemporary artists who would get awards, who would like one of the guys I know, he got the George Soros Fellowship for Contemporary Art. He's also a propagandist. Like Gen X, he's 50, but like the moral compass just doesn't work. It became a little different with the millennial generation, Zoomers, obviously, but with those guys, nothing exists. The most popular Russian literature of the 90s, early 2000s is Viktor Pelevin. Almost all of his books, and I'm talking like millions of books, almost all of his books end with "this was all a dream and this is not real," and we should all be like Buddhists and not kind of pay attention to anything good and evil or artificial concepts, blah blah blah. So a lot of it, and this cynicism is very intellectually well formulated because these Gen Xers, they're well-educated people. They went to good universities. They went to exchange programs with the US. They're not like the guys who die in Ukraine. They speak, but like Rukov, he speaks flawless French. He owns a house in Biarritz. So like these are very intellectual guys, I would say much like probably a lot of the Nazis in early 20th century were also. So I think that's what they kind of imbibe. So they imbibe more with MTV and books than with anything like state messaging.
Nick? Did you have a question?
My name is Nick. I'm a second year here at the Harriman Institute. I wanted to ask because we see a lot of Russian disinformation campaigns across the post-Soviet space, and I was wondering if any of like this pop propaganda and any of like these brand new campaigns, do they gain traction like in the former Soviet republics? Like, does this attract maybe labor migrants or just people to move because they're attracted by these brands and the lifestyle in Russia?
I would say, okay, so like in terms of like people moving to Russia, like labor migrants, never overestimate the power of the dollar, ruble. No amount of propaganda can compete. Like with these guys, no amount of propaganda can compete with just like a lot of money. No amount of propaganda can compete, or to force someone to go without like, any promise of financial gain. So in that sense, they're going there for money because Moscow's rich, Russia's rich. Relatively showing cracks now, still well off. You can make a lot of money there. It does. I would say this: Russia launches campaigns, social media campaigns. Like there was a major TikTok campaign operation, I believe, earlier this year, Romanian elections. So to the point of them having to cancel the elections themselves, postpone them, because you could see it was a major Russian influence operation that did try to influence the election to the point of electing a very populist, like a super Trumpy kind of pro-Russian guy who was like, why help Ukraine, Romania first, etc. They kind of found out about it and they closed it down. And it was more automated because it's more like what they do now is, they record, I don't know, Tucker Carlson, Rachel Maddow. They use AI so that Rachel Maddow is like, well, don't support Ukraine if you're a true liberal. And they post this video. And for people who don't know, like you would see your favorite TV host, just saying things that you wouldn't expect from him to say before. That confuses a lot of people. So they launched that. They don't have that in Russia. They practiced it in Russia in the 90s. That's when they invented it because they printed fake newspapers. That's how this entire technique with AI, with like the TikTok campaigns where you see celebrities saying things that like they're not, was invented in 90s Russia with fake newspapers. But the way it does spill over, Institut Развития Интернета, Internet Development Institute, financed a TV show. It's called Slovo Patsana, A Thug's Promise. I believe it would be like the optimal, probably translation. #1 show in Russia, massively popular in Ukraine, to the point of the presidential administration trying to intervene and like, what the hell? This is financed by Russian propaganda. It still, and they couldn't because like it's not shown officially. You kind of like just download it, pirate it. So that's a very good example. But like it had to be #1 in Russia to become popular in Ukraine.
Yes.
Hi, I moved from the Soviet Union something like 30 years ago. And one of the first things that I found out, on Brighton there was this caviar poster with red caviar and black caviar, like life is great. So it wasn't Russian invention, it was Brighton invention. And when I saw this, it's kind of, I started to think that probably there are more things like not absolutely accurate in your talk. But it's okay, and I really appreciate you. It's everyone's looks at something from different points of view, from their experience. And I very appreciate you that you equalize propaganda and advertisement. You see, a lot of American people don't understand it. You see, and in Russia as well. So it's, thank you very much. But my question is, you see, you worked on one side in Russia and you're kind of comfortable. And now you're on other side here and also fit in. So why you are not afraid? How comes you are not afraid? Could you give some kind of advice? How don't be afraid being on different sides and kind of to be open? Thanks.
I mean, does crippling anxiety count? In terms of being afraid, well, do you mean like of the Kremlin's retribution of like
Whatever it could be not only Kremlin, some patriotic people, whatever, like here, Kirk, like it was not.
I mean that it's very high level.
Yes.
So when I left the Russian propaganda machine, I did get a public beating not far from the Kremlin. Two people assaulted me who were close to the Russian propaganda. One propagandist, another guy was Putin's. He was like Putin's elector. So Putin had a college of 500 of his electors who were sort of like people from various industries all across Russia. So one guy from propaganda, another one, they beat me up, like two of them, near the Kremlin when the police tried to intervene. And this was on the next day after the 2012 presidential election. So at that time, I left the Kremlin and I became chief political correspondent for GQ Russia, not propaganda, just political correspondent. And when police came and they were like, these guys showed them удостоверение, which is like government IDs, like heavy hitting government IDs. And the police was like, could you like do it not outside though? Maybe like take them to a courtyard or something. That was they're like, we're not going to stop you, but like it just looks really bad. So that happened. The Russian propaganda, boy, I mean, like once a year I read something about me, like just some horrible stuff. Again, the worst thing to them is that I donate to the Ukrainian army, but both my parents are from Ukraine. So you bomb their houses, I'm going to donate. But to them, it like seems like very much like betrayal kind of thing. And in that sense, like once a year, I guess something happens. Am I worried? Not really, but I would never travel to a country that has an extradition treaty with Russia. Put it that way. Like as long as I'm on NATO territory, this territory is becoming more questionable by the day. Like I don't know the next Alaska summit. I may be part of an overture to Putin or not. No, I'm not that big. But I would never go to a country. For instance, like I love Thailand. I can't because they arrest opposition-minded Russians. I still hold Russian citizenship. They arrest those people in Thailand. They try and send them back to Moscow often. So so basically that's the level of danger, but it's not as if I'm afraid to like walk the streets of New York, aside from the regular reasons.
Okay, well, this has been, I think, really fascinating, and I hope you will join me in thanking our speaker, Andrew Ryvkin.
Thanks so much. Thank you.